Hi there, BookTube. My name is Daniel. Welcome back to my channel, Guilty Feet. I've got no rhythm. And today I'm going to do my Friday reads and rattle very quickly through the books I finished in the last week. And then I have a question that I would like to ask and get your take on about my reading, and maybe some of you have had this experience. So very quickly, then, the books that I finished in the last week. First up is Laura by Vera Kaspari. This was written in 1941-42, filmed shortly after Vera Kaspari, a female noir novelist, had a long career in writing and then writing for the movies, was blacklisted by the McCarthyite House Un-American Activities communist witch hunt, and wrote under pseudonyms and sort of kind of destroyed her Hollywood career. But I'm getting all this from Wikipedia. I would never have known anything about Vera Caspari had Duncan McCurdy not mentioned this book very early on in my BookTube career. I had seen him and he was talking about this as one of the great reads, and so I managed to get hold of a secondhand copy, picked it up in London in June, and now read it at the end of September, beginning of October. It's fantastic. Really, really, really strong. It was a great recommendation, Duncan, so thank you for that. And I want to pass this on to anybody else. I've got this lovely vintage. This is a sort of modern reprint from probably only a few years ago. One second, let's see when this was published. So this is first published in the States in 1943, so I got that completely wrong. And this was published by Vintage in 2012. So this is a reprint from the last 10 years. If you read any sort of 1940s noir, if you've got any love of Chandler, any love of those old movies, if you've ever seen a Bogart movie and said, he's not good looking, but he's kind of sexy, then this is the kind of thing for you. That's Bogart. This is Laura, who's a whole other creature. We find out on page 1 that Laura has been killed, and our narrator is a chap called Waldo Lydecker, which is a classic 40s noir name, who is the most pompous ass, and narrating our book. Sitting at my desk, pen in hand, I treasured the sense that among those millions, only I, Waldo Lydecker, was up and doing. The day just past, devoted to shock and misery, had stripped me of sorrow, because Waldo has found out that Laura, a good friend of his, maybe a protege in some respects, has been murdered, and Waldo is devastated, and he greets the detective who has come in to investigate this murder, because Waldo is one of the last few people to have seen Laura alive. And Waldo narrates this. I say Waldo is just a terrible bore, very impressed with himself, very pleased with his intellect. He feels superior to everyone around him, is judging the people around him, judging the detective and trying to suss him out, and noticing the detective has a limp and therefore blah, all this kind of stuff. It was kind of insufferable. And I've read books with those kind of narrators before. I guess, in the back of my soul, this is not a good way to read books, but I guess in the back, I'm reading this and I'm wondering whether is this going to be the kind of book that I can feel good about the fact that it was recommended to me. I had a strong recommendation. I've gone out, I paid the money, I picked it up. It's something I want to be able to pass on to others, or is this actually going to be kind of insufferable and mediocre? And while Waldo is narrating it, I always had those concerns in my head. Is this really the whole thing? I thought this was exciting because this was a female author of noir, and yet we've got this pompous old twerp of a narrator, sort of Ignatius O'Reilly kind of narrator, and I was a little concerned, but I hope this isn't a spoiler for anyone, but if to know more about this, I'm not going to spoil the story, but I might spoil it may spoil the surprise, the format, which was a surprise to me, a pleasant surprise. About 60 pages in, we switch perspectives. So that we've had 60 pages of Waldo. So stop listening. Sorry if that's spoiled. If you stop listening, if you don't want to hear anymore. after 60 pages, we stop following Waldo, or stop being inside Waldo's head and his narration, and move to one of the other characters. And later on, we move to another character. And the book is full of surprises. The changes in perspective are tremendously handled with a very deft touch. And suddenly, across the entire work, which the whole book is 160 pages, we begin to realize that actually this is being very deftly managed by an author in control of all these moving parts, so that we know each of these narrators is not entirely reliable, and the story of what happened to Laura is revealed over time, and not at all what we might have thought. More than that, I will not say. So I hope that flagging that change in perspective hasn't ruined anything for anyone. But I kind of also hope that anyone starting reading this and thinking, oh, it's one of those, will hold out for that change, because then it'll turn out to be not one of those at all, but something entirely different. Something I imagine, this was made into a movie, which I haven't seen. By all accounts, was a successful. It was made into a movie a couple of years after it was published, so it was picked up straight away and made into a movie in the mid-40s in Hollywood. It's one of those things that you can't do that change of perspective in the cinema. This is a literary thing that works on the page because it is being written by somebody who knows what they're doing. Laura by Vera Caspari, I don't want to give anything else away, a 1940s crime novel written by a woman that will knock you off your feet. Terrific stuff. After that, I read the next 2 volumes of a graphic novel, which I spoke about a few weeks ago. I read the first one. Wasn't terribly exciting. I thought, I bought the first 3 as a set from eBay. I thought, well, I'll get the next 2 volumes out of the way. And this was volume 2 and volume 3 of Proof. Volume 2 is titled The Company of Men. Book 3, Thunderbirds Are Go, where the Thunderbirds are not marionettes in the 60s made by Jerry Anderson. They are actual giant birds. Okay, again, I said this was like sort of X-Files, and this character, Proof, is actually some kind of Yeti or something, but we don't know, and the mystery of him and whatever. They're okay. These, I think, were perhaps a little more entertaining than that first volume, which was all about setting things up, and there's a golem in here and some weird origin stuff, and we ever find out? And I think there are 3 more volumes. There are 3 more collected editions like this. Each of these has 4 or 5 or 6 issues. I think there are 3 more of this. I'm not chasing them. I doubt I'll come across them in the wild ever, in the order that I would need to. Like if I suddenly tomorrow came across volume 6 and I've read 1, 2, and 3, and would I pay £5 for it just to wait and hold out in the off chance? Probably not. I'd probably leave it until I could. But if I saw volume 4, maybe I'd pick it up. I don't know. This is just me and my obsessive completist thing. Inessential. Glad I've got them on the shelf. They'll stay in the collection until someone makes me an offer on them, but probably won't sell them. And then the last book that I finished last week is Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri, which I spoke about and did a whole video on Jhumpa Lahiri. For me, 10 minutes ago. For you guys, I'm publishing that yesterday, I think. So if you want to know my feelings, TLDR, loved it, absolutely terrific, perhaps my favourite Lahiri experience, written in Italian, translated by the author into English. Everything, all Lahiri's themes across her entire collected works is captured and exemplified here, and this is just fantastic, and more people should be reading this. I don't know why more people aren't talking about it. The book that I'm currently reading, which is what going to prompt this next question, and I'm halfway through and enjoying it. I want to be very clear. Halfway through, I'm not going to talk about the whole thing. I'll review it formally next week, because I'll finish it over this weekend. But I'm currently reading the latest Sally Rooney book, Beautiful World, Where Are You? It's on my bedside at home, which I don't have the copy that I'd hold up. A lot of noise outside. So halfway through, really enjoying it. But, and there is a but, So let's just cover my history with Rooney to date. I read Conversations with Friends because everyone was reading it, thought I should. Didn't get it, didn't enjoy it, thought it was just hyped and didn't see the substance there. Found it just not like the conversations with friends taking place between friends in Conversation with Friends were not like conversations that anybody would ever have. It felt very artificial and very trying hard. So gave up. Okay, so it's maybe a voice of a generation, not my generation. Then Normal People came out, a lot of hype around that, the book, that is, and I bought it, and I ended up buying it in hardback, but to make up an order I was buying books from a website, I needed another book of a certain value in order to get the free shipping, and bought Conversation with Friends, had it sitting there in hardback, read it. Sorry, Normal People, had it sitting there in hardback and read it, and absolutely got it. Really, really, everything that I didn't get and didn't like about Conversation with Friends, I got from Normal People. I was totally sucked in. That relationship felt real and complicated and intimate and difficult and unresolved, and I was able, through this book, to remember what it was like being a teenager and the relationships that I had in those days. Again, not unique to this reader, but this reader should note that I married the girl I dated when I was 17 years old, and have been married to her for almost 30 years now. So, that not just I remember what that kind of thing was like, and there were all sorts of other relationships, of course, going on at the time. We didn't get married at 17, so that sense of the just massively world-ending importance of relationships at that age. Still, I have some sense memory of those, because one of the people that I went through that with very intimately is still very much in my life. So Normal People really got that. Didn't watch the TV show. I was just talking to my daughter about it this morning. I took her drove with her to work, and she watched the TV show. She said, "Oh, is there a book?" I said, "Yes, there's a book. You crazy. How do you live in my apartment and not know there's a book of Normal People sitting there on the shelf?" "Oh yeah, maybe I should read that." She loved the TV show and was totally engrossed in it. So I was all on board for Sally Rooney, and then picked up this short story that she published called Mr. Salary. I've just read that this year because I picked up from eBay, and terrific. So I'm very excited to read Beautiful World, Where Are You?, which I will say I'm halfway through and I'm enjoying it. Here's my question. Is it possible to be too old for a book? Sally Rooney is more than 20 years younger than I am, writing for an audience. I read books aimed at an audience. So my quibble is not about books aimed at an audience other than me. I don't need to read books that are only aimed at people my age. I read kids' books, I read young adult books, I read books about millennials, and I read classics, and I read books written by people my age about people my age. My sense with reading Rooney is that life is so difficult. It's so painfully difficult to go through all the things they go through, and I'm reading it and I'm empathizing with it, and I'm thinking, why is it so difficult? You're 28 years old. Life is joyous and fun. Why is sex so complicated? Why is love so mystifying and head-turningly difficult for you? Why are friendships so fraught? Why is any kind of interaction with any other human being so bloody difficult? So that's my struggle. I talk to my daughter, who's younger than Sally Rooney, and my other children who are also younger than Sally Rooney, but not by much. My children are all in their mid-20s. Sally Rooney is 30. So it's not, 3, 5, 7 years between Sally Rooney and my youngest. And I don't know. I don't understand that generation really, and partly because I'm a parent to that generation. But but there just seems to be something else going on, and I want to appeal to you, the people who are still watching this 15 minutes in. Is there something happening here? Is it just this author? So I guess the other thing that I read recently, which also sort of left me, what now? Was Lustre, Raven Leilani's Lustre, which I read, and it was so difficult. Not difficult read. It's a great book, terrifically written, really smart writing, beautiful prose, but the relationships displayed in this book are so messy and complicated and fraught. The emotions being worked through here are so involved. Every decision is layered, and it just seems to be a joylessness about it, which I'm struggling with. No, I mean, if this is not an interesting discussion to you, please skip it. But I would love to know. I'm reading these. I don't like to call them millennial fiction. I don't want to group things together where any given writer of an age is automatically grouped with other people the same age. That's meaningless to me. But these concerns, these 21st century relationships that we are being shown from multiple angles, and the dimensions of these things just seem to be more fraught, more difficult, but less complex. Like the difficulties seem to be so, I'm not happy in my life, so I can't be happy in a relationship. Okay, it seems to me that the relationships in Anna Karenina, in The Age of Innocence, in War and Peace, another Tolstoy, who I think is the master of, the most emotionally intelligent author, but Jane Austen, even the relationships and that are formed, and these friendships and the friendships that evolve into relationships seem to be so much more complex and intellectually honest than some of the stuff that I'm reading. I'm enjoying the Sally Rooney book. I think she's a great writer after a bad first book. I think she is genuinely talented. I'm just wondering whether it's no longer for me. I was excited to read this book. I know some people have been disappointed in it. I'm not disappointed so far. Not too early to make a final decision. It's everything that I was hoping for, and it may be that it's time to. I've had such a great year with between Jumpalhiri and Piranesi and Martin Amis book. Martin Amis is 20 years older than me, but maybe I need to pull back from 30-year-old authors a little bit until they get some shit sorted out. Terrible, sorry. So I know that some of the people that comment here or regularly or that I interact with, I think are across a range. So I'd love to hear people shout at me and tell me that I'm an old fart and I should shut up and mind my own business. And I'd love to hear if anyone is feeling something similar about relating to this complex, overwrought, terribly burdensome world of sex and work and decision making. That's my Friday for you. Have a great weekend. This is relatively short and my recent output. Take care. God bless. Bye.